Ahoy,
ahoy, everyone.
Oh, look at that. Our front light's not on.
Oh, look at that. Okay.
Of course we
Prepare yourself, everyone.
Middle prepare.
Wow.
There. Okay. Well, that's what we
right. And I'm tall
that's what we really look like, or at least sort of really look like.
You know, you can always count on a little moment of chaos in the first 10 seconds, right?
Because why not? Right. I mean, really.
Hi, everyone.
So, gosh, here we are. It's Monday. It's our last Monday show of 2020.
Yep.
Look at that.
Can you by any chance, or I could do it on my phone? I look like I'm nuclear up here. I shined up my head.
Yeah, let me take care of that.
Thanks. That's awesome.
All right. So we are, well, first of all, I hope everybody had a really good holiday. And if you didn't catch the show yesterday, we had our regular Sunday show, and we were showing off various and sundry Lego sets, and Splashy made multiple appearances
with new personality. Thanks, Moto.
Personality. Oh my goodness. So, but it was a really fun show. So let's see. I have to take off my glasses so I can see who's here.
Wow, I feel like a bunch of gnomes came and put their fingers all over my glasses.
Gnomes, really?
Yeah, okay. They were gnomes.
So let's see. Wilfred is here. MX Bricks is here. Hooded One. Chris, Twix, Miss Chalice, and Jaden. How's it going, guys? Kim is here. Wow, like not at the end. I'm calm already.
We're
just
not
reading
even
it.
Alphabetical.
I know. See you later. Shane Levan, Alex 23, Darren Siegfried, Debo Bricks. Bob Builds, how's it going?
Fabufan MKE.
Matthew Builds Bricks. Moto is here.
Yay.
Mohammed Hassan Jamal from Dubai, all the way from Dubai. Hi and welcome. Good to see you. Brickanista is here. Amper up. Oh, yay. It's actually Monica Berry. Well, that's fine. The Jammy Bricker. Cowboy Cornado. Ahoy howdy. Holly is here, and she will be joining us actually on screen here in just a little bit. Minifig Nick, how's it going, Minifig Nick? I loved your Panto piece. I was so awesome. Ms. Slow Brickta, the Hornburgers are here. Ahoy, hoy, Hornburgers. Jake Sadovich is here. Always good to see you, Jake. Marilyn Parmley and the Parmleys, I would expect. Hooded One, I'm not sure if we got you earlier.
I think we got him. Again,
Brickman Mosaics Art. Wilfred, bonsoir. Let's see.
Did you get Joel Marbella?
No, Joel Marbella is here. Minifig Chick. Let's see. Now we're getting to John Luttrell is here. Johnny Cat. Wow, we got a big group today. Apples is here from Europe.
We get Brickanista.
Yes. KK Bricks. And let's see, I think that's got it. I think that got everybody.
Well,
at least everybody's
everyone
here now. The Brick Orphanage is here. How's it going?
Whether you're chatting or not, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, welcome. It's Monday morning.
Yeah, and we can actually, what I love about doing this on StreamYard is we can actually see the Facebook chats in the regular chat.
Oh, right on. It's a bigger clubhouse.
Definitely time for a good. So we have a very, very exciting show today. So,
Iceberg Bricks is here too.
Oh, Mel, another Mel is here. We got two Mels in the house today. Mel, Iceberg Bricks is here from Lego Masters. Mel, good to see you as always. So, as I was about to say, we have an exciting show, an exciting guest. Mel Caddick is here. She is a prolific designer.
I bet you've seen her work. We were surprised actually at how much of her work we have just sitting around right here at our house.
And I don't know if Minifig Chick is there, but I think there you go. I just put a link in there that shows her. There's a brick set list of all of the sets that she's worked on. You can check that out.
Thanks to our friends at Brickset.
Yes, and there's also a link there that you can copy and paste if you need to. So she's got a lot of amazing models. If you scroll through that, you will find that you probably have multiples of her sets around your house in some place or another. So let's see. We are going to, first of all, I'm going to bring on our guest host today. We have Holly is here with us. Hi, Holly.
Hi, hi.
Inimitable Holly.
And Holly has been instrumental in getting some of these amazing guests that we've had on the show. So we're really grateful to you, Holly, for reaching out and asking people to come be on the show with us. So thanks for that.
Yeah, it's no problem. I just ask people to come hang out, and they do.
I know it works out rather well.
We're also super excited today to be talking with our first female Lego designer that we've had on the show.
Finally,
I know, and it wasn't for lack of trying. Let me say. But I'm so glad that we do have that moment now.
Just so people know, for designers to be able to do stuff like this, it's required that they have some sort of media training. You can't. I actually just as casually like ask people to come on and they show up. It has to go through approval.
Here's the whole thing.
Media training.
Yeah, well, our media
make it sound easy.
Our media training for Lego Masters was basically shut up until the show comes on. That was our whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, bye, Zach Martinez.
Oh, Zach Martinez is here. He says, hope everybody's doing well. Traveling today and on the road, so just popping by to say ahoy hoy. Have a great day and a great stream. We'll watch stream one off the road. Awesome. Very good. Thank you, Zach. So glad you stopped in. Appreciate it. So that's always nice. I always love when people just pop in. They're like, I can't be here, but I just wanted to say hi. That always makes me super happy. But so before we have Mel on, let's quickly roll through our little features. We have our pins.
Disney pins.
So I don't know if do you have a pin today there?
Sure.
Oh. Yeah, I know. All right. Let's see what you got.
Well, I'm running out of pins, so I'm going through my Leica stash now, and here is just a basic little 4-line button.
Nice. I have one of those.
I bet you do. I wonder where you got it.
Here's looking at you.
I have got Oh, sorry, I forgot. We're not on the screen right now.
I don't like putting holes in my shirt, so I'll just hold it there.
I've got this awesome Hades pin. I don't know if it's gonna do it. Yep,
yeah,
there you go. Got this awesome Hades pin.
He looks like he's having a hard day.
Yes, that was part of this Villains pin set that our friend Dave gave us for Christmas. So I'm excited to have a new villain pin to wear on one of my favorite T-shirts.
And today I'm featuring the ever thoughtful owl from Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, that's a cute one. I like that one. It's very.
There's a whole series of those that he has of the little silhouettes.
Right?
Yeah, it's really
like that.
Cute. Oops. Caught up there. All right, so I apologize if I have to run away for a moment during this. My 3D printer is supposed to arrive today, and I'm not leaving it on the porch any longer than it needs to be out there.
That's smart.
So if you see me run away, that's probably why.
Flynn just abandons us. He just exits screen, and we never see him again.
Bye. And you hear the whirring start as he starts printing things during the show.
Which then like kills all of our electricity and everything shuts down, which is exactly what would be happening.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we have our pins, but now it's time to welcome our very special guest today. Please welcome all the way from sunny Billund, Denmark. We have Mel Caddick is here. Mel, hi Mel.
Hi.
Hello.
G'day.
So good to see you. So I understand it's bright and sunny, and everybody wants to go for a walk right now in Billund. Is that true? No?
No, not the case. Very dark. Very, very dark.
It might lend itself to staying inside and building.
I have to say, like all the people that we've talked to several, designers. We've had Matthew Ashton on, and Justin, and Wes, and Tiago. And one of the, whenever we ask them about living in Billund, like the first thing they're all just kind of like, well, it's very dark and cold a lot of the year. But still, you have an awesome job that you get to at least to take up the time that you don't have to look out, out and be out in the dark cold.
And usually you get to travel too to escape it, which really hasn't been the case as much this year, right?
No, exactly. Yeah.
So just to dive right in here. I'm looking right now at your brick list on Bricklink, and hopefully, on Brickset, and hopefully some other people are also looking at it. I have it here open in a little window, and I'm just looking, and it looks like your earliest set was from 2013. Is that track right? No, earlier.
Earlier.
Oh, yes. Tell us, what was your first set, and what year did it come out?
Oh gosh. Okay. Just for those who don't know, I've been working at Lego for over 12 years now, and I joined the design department in 2010. So around 2011, I think, around 2011 sometime was my first set. But I was working on 2 sets simultaneously. So one came out before the other, even though I started one before the other. And that is the Brickley set, the little dragon type thing.
Yeah.
And then also the, what do you call it? The inside tour molding machines.
Oh yes, yeah, I have them right here. And actually, I was I was confused just because they weren't in time order on my list. Exactly. I was looking at the earliest one, but I have. Let me see. I should be able to share my screen here.
That actually brings up my first question. I was looking at your catalog, and I noticed there's a series of animals, whether they were polybags or larger, like Brickley, that have a very brick-built quality to them. And then there's also these the mini or the micro sets. Like, did I put it here?
Yeah, Mel gets assigned all the animal sets.
Yes, well, I'm wondering, the one in the polybag.
How is it different for you when you approach the molding machines or HMV production or the Camarkin factory versus a polybag? They have such distinctive styles.
Yeah, it depends on everything. You've got like the brief that comes into you, who is actually the targeted audience, the age mark, what size packaging it's going to go into, the amount of elements you can have, all of that. So yeah, it depends on what the purpose is for.
Are the element limits early on in the process?
Actually, for the molding machines, obviously you can't have too many elements because it needs to fit inside the box. So it has to go inside that. And because of the way that one was also packaged at the time, it was a little bit different compared to, say, a polybag. A polybag is quite very different in general compared to a set in a box. Also because of the way that it had been packed in general.
I've worked on some projects as a lighting designer where I had near limitless budgets and pulled out all of the tricks, and then some that had very, very limited budgets and few tools. And I just noticed how exciting your polybags with very few parts are. The animals are so expressive, and they seem to have a continuous style through all of those.
Okay, which ones are you actually referring to?
My curiosity is I'm looking at these two, right? I'm looking at Brickley, which is adorable, by the way, like so good. And then looking at the molding machines, and I have to say, for like a smaller set, and for somebody who is just starting out at the company, this seems a very complex, for the size that it is, a very complex model. And I'm curious how that was, just like kind of coming in hot, like you get the job and they're like, okay, here is this sort of somewhat complicated model with Technic and all that sort of thing. So how was that being presented with such a sort of complicated model right off the bat?
Yeah, okay, to begin with, there was an actual sketch model that someone had already created. It was quite different looking from this one. And then basically the whole idea was to build a molding machine, because it has to have something to do with the history or something to do with the company when you have the inside tours. And so I thought, okay, it could actually be nice to do not just a generic molding machine, but one of the latest models that's actually out at the moment, or at the time. So I thought, okay, if we have also like the latest, then we can also have something that's a bit more historic, which is also why you have the little old-fashioned style one there as well. because I thought then you got something from the past and something from the, you know, the present, so to speak. And then basically I took a tour out to the factories where the molding machines were, and we got to see, you know, I get to take pictures and have a look at the different way that they're being, how they produce the elements, and, you know, all the different iconic features that it would actually need in order to create the model. And then, of course, you know, I have other team members in my team at the time who could also help out a little bit by saying, you know, maybe put this here or put that there or whatever it happens to be. And what I really wanted to do was actually put a function into it. So I actually wanted to make sure that you could put little elements at the top, and then that they would come out at the bottom into the little basket.
That's so cool. I love that. Oh, and it looks like our buddy Justin Ramsden here. He's looking for a shout out from Mel.
Here, I thought
I didn't know you were
at a remote cabin or something.
Yeah, Justin has this amazing sense of like always coming in like right when anybody's talking about him. It's very funny.
I don't know how that happens.
To answer your question from earlier, the polybags I was especially interested in were the holiday sets. There have been so many different holiday sets, and when I look at them over what must have been years, they seem to have a pretty consistent style. You know, the size is similar, and the way the figures are rounded in particular.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like, I guess everyone's got a style, right?
Yeah. Well, is that something that you think has emerged from the way that you work over time at Lego, or did you say, I really want these to have this quality, these sort of big eyes, cute, small, almost brickhead sized figures, even before brickheads?
Yeah. To be honest, I'm not really a fan of those ones. So, you know, I think it's like this for a lot of designers. When they create something, of course, you know, you have a certain amount of time to produce something. And if I produce something, I only have back then we really had a very small time span. I work quite differently. My department works quite differently compared to the rest of Lego core line, because we are actually from the extended line department. So our products are quite different, and we're producing a lot of products. So you can actually see that in my brick set list. It's quite a lot of models because we produce so many products. So we don't have an awful lot of time to loop and reloop and so on. But to be honest, I look at some of those products today and I think, you know, with the new elements that we currently have out, and, you know, of course, you're learning as you go along because, you know, in our department, we're producing so many different things that we're not really a specialist at producing one type of thing. We're producing so many different miscellaneous type things. You know, it could be a car, it could be a rocket, it could be a house, it could be, you know, so many different things. It's not like we're in Ninjago or we're in City where we're just producing those sort of sets. It's a variety of all sorts of stuff. So, of course, you know, if we were just to build animals, what we did at the beginning, over time, I would hope that we would actually get better and better at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's pretty common for all builders to go back and look at things and think, oh, if only I'd had these parts then, how you would redo it.
Yeah. If I had more time, I would, you know, also want to redo it.
Yeah, it kind of makes me, I relate to it in my background as going from doing commercials to doing film. It's kind of that thing where you're doing the short format, really quick turnaround to the obviously longer format, and it takes years to make something. And I think that goes back to one of our viewer questions too, which was like as far as your team effort, like how many people do you have working on a polybag versus how many people, what kind of team do you have working on a full set? Like, is it just you generally making kind of the smaller seasonal sets, like the gift with purchases? Is that pretty much just you and like maybe one or two other people collaborating? And then like people working on a bigger set?
Okay. Over the years, it has changed. Way back when, I mean, our department has, these days it's actually grown. So at the very beginning, there was only a couple of us. And of course, we didn't have so many products to produce back then. And over time, we've produced more, but we've also got more employees in our department now, other designers and so on. But I mean, some of those designers were working on what we call brick base stuff, which is what I'm working on. And then others were working on merchandise stuff. But now a lot of us are just working on the brick-based stuff because we're producing and we need to have more. But in general, sometimes it varies. Every year there's a different story, you could say. So some years, some people were just they're working on the concept model, and then they will work on the finalized model. And some are maybe working on the concept model, and then someone else will finalize that model. So it does vary.
Mm-hmm. I did hear that it's fairly rare that somebody gets to work on the sketch model and the final product.
Maybe in core it might be different. In our department, we run quite differently. So yeah.
That's interesting. That actually brings me to something. So I'm going to bring this up here real quick because this is probably one of my very favorite Winter Village sets. I love the blue and brown theme. Like this one and the post office are like my two favorite ones. And I'm curious about just, and this is sort of just kind of building on what Holly was talking about. Like, what is the difference in sort of the collaborative process between doing something like this and something like one of the Bricktober sets? Do you kind of like what Holly was saying? Like, are you like, was the Bricktober like that little the town hall that we were looking at earlier? Yeah, one of our first Lego models that we ever put together. How was that process different between these two things? I mean, they're very, very different things. Was this like 100% you with a little bit of input here and there? And then like with the Winter Village Cottage, did you work with another designer, several other designers? How did that work exactly?
Okay, so this set is actually mostly done by Steen Emerson. And then there was a bit of a collaboration. So he did the main house and I did some of the decorations on the house. And then of course we gave him input. The car and the igloo was done by Jordan, who's obviously no longer with us. And then I did some of the other little accessories and also the little outhouse and a couple of small things inside. And then also helped a little bit with the chimney. So that was quite a collaboration between us three. And back then I was actually in the creative department. I was in creator to begin with, and then I left creator in 2014 to join the rest of licensing and extended line. So that was quite different. That's also another creator set there as well.
And then this one too. Sorry, real quick. The family house. No, what was your where was your contribution with this?
Okay, so Lamy did the main house, and if you have the B or C model, I can't remember if it was a B or C, but I did not the factory, but the other house, the little Mediterranean style house.
Oh, cute! Yes, I know the one you're talking about. Yeah, this is a great little set. Now, go ahead.
That makes me think of the first things I saw that I was really taken with when I was looking at the things you built were the designer sets: action, creature, adventure, and invention. And in all of those, you're making multiple models. So do you start with one base model and say, what else can I make out of this? Or that seems to be a bit of a puzzle of a design process.
Yeah. I mean, these sets, there's so many stories. Like if you look at my whole entire catalog, as you guys are calling it, there's a story to every single part of it. Like I said, this is not as simple as Ninjago or City or Technic or anything like that. But if I just explain this one, for example, the idea behind this was, as you'll probably notice, that each of one of these themes, there's different colors. So we have a color palette, and we kind of had to work within that color palette. And then we had to produce a certain amount of models, and there needed to be some hints and tricks and tips and all that sort of stuff in the booklets. So we had to produce stuff that could actually reflect back into the booklets so that it actually made sense. So there's a lot of different features and little functions and stuff like that are done on purpose so that we could actually have some content for the book as well and teach kids along the way, how to do this, how to do that. Because that's the whole idea behind the Lego Masters Academy, right? You're teaching kids how to do stuff. At least that was the intention.
So these sets actually predated our entry into the hobby, and I've seen these around. I'm not like I
think we need this set.
I know. Like, anything spooky or Halloween like is absolutely going to be right here where we are. But these are interesting sets, and I'm just curious, like, what was the, because clearly this was a line at one point, and that no longer exists.
That's right.
So was this trying to, like you're saying, I see it's called Master Builder Academy, so I'm assuming this was a way to get kids to work with some more maybe advanced techniques in a way that wasn't overwhelming.
Yeah.
Is that true? I mean, because I know, like, the smaller sets tend to be simpler, the larger sets tend to be more complicated, and I feel like when you're working on a larger model that has lots of complicated things going on in it, it might be a little harder to parse all of those individually, like, oh, there was this cool thing and this cool thing and this cool thing, because there were so many in such a large build. And this seems like a great way to kind of focus that down to a few key techniques. So these are definitely sets that I want to check out, and I love that they've all got a function, like they all have function to them.
So then, were you given those techniques going in? They said, we want you to make an opening door. There needs to be a sliding function, and then a lot of the design filled in that curriculum.
I mean, there was a lot of looping going back and forth, because we were starting out the very first ones. I think it was the creatures one. So, there was a lot of, what do we want out of this? How should this work? How are we going to go about this? And so on, right? So there's a lot of collaborating going back and forth at the time with the team. And, we decided that one would be about hinges and stuff like that. And this one was more about functions, I think it was. So, each set has a different theme. I mean, it's a very long time ago that I worked on this, so bear with me. But yeah, it's like, a long time ago. But yeah, we just had so many different things to take into consideration. I can't remember what I was going to say. Sorry.
Okay. Is that your preferred method, or would you like to start with a blank table and just build whatever is in your imagination?
No.
I find that limitations and deadlines keep me going.
I was going to say, do you guys even have that luxury? Just build whatever you want.
It depends. But no, I mean, like there was criteria that went along with this, of what they had expectations of, and we chose, sometimes we'd just challenge back and say we can do this, can do that, or can't do this, or can't do that, depending also because if we're also working within a certain color palette, obviously there's only certain elements that are available. So there'd be like the main colors, and then there'd be like spot colors and highlight colors and all that sort of stuff as well. And they would actually, our team at the time would be the ones who would say, this is going to be the highlight colors, this is going to be the spot colors, and so on. So there's a lot of different things too. And then that kind of had an influence as to what we would build and how we would build it, if that makes sense. But
are there any parts that you've requested, like new parts, new colors?
Back then?
At any point. Is there any particular part that you're like, I really have to have this part to make this work?
We're talking about 10 years ago? I'm getting old.
Right.
I mean, do you remember what you had for dinner 10 years ago?
I think I would remember a new part, though. That's something I would imagine would maybe stick out in my mind, because I can think of parts that I would like to have sometimes, that are like, oh, if I only had this part, then, that would change my world.
We probably had a little influence. If I remember correctly, we may have had a little influence back then as to what could stay and what could go and all that sort of stuff. So, there was a little bit of creative freedom in some of it. But yeah, you still had a lot of restrictions, and maybe someone will say, oh, we don't like that element, or please use this element, or we think of this one could be better, or whatever happens. But then just also bear in mind that with some of those sets, we also had to create other things out of it. And it's the same when you do a creator set, right? You may change a lot of elements because all of a sudden it influences another B model or C model, or whatever it happens to be. So there's a lot of changing back and forth between some of these elements, some of these sets.
So sorry, I do have some questions here that we got from viewers ahead of time, and we're going to kind of go back in time a little bit, even further. Now, I know you have been building Lego since you were little, right? Like it's sort of a lifelong obsession, if you will.
Yes.
So we have a question here. You were really into Lego from an early age, but did you ever have a dark age? And if so, what brought you out of it? If not, was there anything in particular that helped you stay an active Lego builder?
Okay. If I had a dark age, it was before the age of 3 because I didn't know what Lego was back then. Otherwise, if anything, I had a poor age.
Oh, yeah.
Dark age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, I got my first Lego set when I was 3 from my grandparents. So it's their fault. Blame them. They're the ones who started it. And it was a big, huge set. It was bigger than me. I remember like my grandma opening up the boot of the car and like pulling out this big set, and I was just like struggling with it. Unfortunately, I can't remember what SKU number it was. I think it was like 3 digits, and it had an 8 somewhere, and it had those big. And you know, it's one of those sets that you open up the cardboard lid, and then you know, it had like the foam inserts or plastic inserts. I can't remember. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's a big set, and then I mean, it pretty much, yeah. I just loved Lego so much as a child. You know, I thought it was just a great toy. It's like, you know, my brother would have like, you know, Matchbox cars and stuff like that, other sort of various different types of vehicles and stuff. You know, maybe a wheel would fall off or something like that, and then he would be like, okay, the car's no good anymore. You know, don't want to play with it. Whereas with Lego, I mean, if a wheel falls off a vehicle, you just put it back on again. If you want a different type of vehicle, you build something. If you want a different house or a different, want to build a dog or a cat or something like that, you do it. I mean, that was the amazing thing about Lego. So it really appealed to me that I could have literally whatever I wanted, even though my parents may not be able to afford it, as long as I could build it out of the Lego that I had. So every birthday, Christmas or whatever, I would constantly ask for my birthday, I would like to have Lego, because I knew I could just build from there, anything I wanted. So.
That's amazing.
Do you remember any particular model or that you put together or that you built as a kid?
Kind of. I mean, I was building it with my brother. But we also didn't have, you know, I mean, kids today are spoiled, right? They have so many things. You know, in my generation, we didn't have so many things. So, you know, parents, you know, there's one income. Mum would be at home working, looking after the kids, and dad would be working. So it's difficult back then to have as much Lego as kids have today.
Right.
So, you know, for us, it was like we didn't have so much Lego. So, you know, sometimes it would be just building little houses or improvising with different objects around the house, and, you know, maybe getting strips of wood or cardboard or whatever, and making some roads out of that. And just the minimal Lego that we did have would be the houses, and then it would use the vehicles, like non-Lego vehicles, and would build our own city or create our own town or whatever it happens to be. So.
Yeah, even with both of my parents working, I still didn't get that much Lego. I would beg for Lego sets, and my mom would make a case that if you really want them that bad, you'll do some chores and save your money and buy your own sets. And so that's generally what I had to do. So I only had maybe 5 sets growing up. And I remember specifically telling my mother one time when I got really upset with her that, you know, when I grow up, I'm going to have all the Lego, I'm going to buy all the Lego sets I want. So
and you did.
My issues.
Well, I mean, I have to say, like, you know, we do have a pretty extensive collection, you know, and we build really big things. But I find that one of the things that we love the most about building is that challenge of maybe you don't have that exact piece that you need, and that you're going to have to find some way to improvise or to find something else that will work. Because that's one of the things that we love about building, right? Is that there are multiple paths to the same end.
And the art of the limitations.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of times that brings on more innovation, right? Because you're sort of like forced to do something to do something different. And I love that about it. It makes me really happy.
So you mentioned using cardboard or wood for roads. I'm really fascinated by the new road tape and water tape you made. Can you talk about that at all? I mean, it's such a departure from other elements that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can't speak so much about the tape part because that's not actually my design. I was more, because like I said earlier, I'm more brick based. So I'm dealing with the Lego elements more than anything. And the other part was created by one of my colleagues.
Oh, I see. I misunderstood. I thought it was one of, what was your relationship to it?
The brick elements. So I selected the elements for that.
Yeah. Got understood.
So one of them was the road. One of them was road. So we, of course, we chose certain elements that could help with that. Also, so that you could actually have a story and a bit of play there. But my colleague who was coming up with the tape part, the idea is that you can make corners or straight or crossroads or whatever. You can. It's up to you how you put that tape on the carpet or if you put it on the floor or whatever it is, as opposed to city roads and stuff like that. I mean, it's a cheaper version, it's a lot easier and stuff. And then, of course, you've got the water. So you also have like the rivers and all that, the streams and so on.
So, and now did you also do I'm assuming you did the part selection for the Big Lac boxes?
Yes. Well, actually, that's a big collaboration. So many people were part of that. So basically I would come up with a whole pile of different elements just based on suggestions. We would like this, we would like that, and so on. And then, there's a lot of back and forthing of the colors, the availability, all these different things. So there's a lot of stuff to take into consideration. That was a big project, actually. Even though it's a small box, it was a big project. IKEA had their say, Lego had their say, and so on. So there's a lot of people involved, and the
design by committee.
Yeah, I mean, like, the initial layout is very different from the layout that we currently have of all the different element parts and so on.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, we love those boxes. We had we did a build with those early on. It was really fun. So I had, let's see, I've got some more questions here. We'll try and not stay too far into the past here. But let's see. Oh, so do you have a set that you've created over the many that you've created that is a favorite? And if you don't necessarily have a favorite, do you have one that you kind of said, I'm really happy with the sort of technical thing I was able to get in there, or the color palette, or anything like that?
I don't have a specific favorite. Mainly, I'm a little hard on myself to some degree because I always see every set that I produce, you always come up with better ideas later on once it's out. You're like, should have done this, should have done that, could have done this, could have done that. Or a new element comes out and it's like, why didn't it come out like 6 months ago? So, there's always room for improvement. There's always, you want to evolve and so on. But if I have to have a favorite, I can't think of anything specific, but anything that has a function in it, because I'm not a hugely fantastic at functions, but I put them in because I also want to be able to learn how to do them. And I also want kids to be able to, learn how to do this function. So my functions are quite basic, which is, great for kids who need to learn how to make a basic function with minimal parts and so on. I mean, our boxes aren't that big. So of course, the function can't be too massive. But it's also a nice way for me to challenge myself as well. And I like it when there's a function in there because I think that's quite fun. It makes it a little bit more playable.
This little gear function that you have in the ice skating rink is a perfectly elegant and simple solution, I think. I don't know why it would need to be any more complicated than that.
With that set, what I really wanted to do was I wanted to have it rotating, but then I also wanted the minifigures to be able to rotate, as well. So there was kind of like two functions in there, you could say.
It's like a gingerbread.
Yeah.
And was motion in on the ground floor of this model? Did it start from a place of we're going to have a moving model?
To be honest, I can't remember exactly what the brief was, but we wanted something winter themed. And so, we probably came up with a bunch of different ideas at the time. And yeah, in the end, I think we agreed that this would be probably the best direction to go on. And then with this one, with the functions, I tried to make them you know, we have a lot of restrictions when we're creating these sets. So yeah, I know some people say you can do this and you can do that and make this better and so on, but it's not necessarily that easy. I mean, I had to make it a certain height and a certain level and, you know, quite basic to some degree, but also functional because it needs to function constantly. I mean, it's quite different, obviously, when you're building as a fan compared to when you're building an actual product. There's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was something we kind of talked about with Wes a little bit when he was on, and that was the stress test, like specifically the flying Hedwig model, and how there was, you know, a whole section of the creation of it was just about making sure that you could turn that thing 8,000 times.
Did you put this through the heat test?
Of course,
they all
have
go
to go through the tests.
Yeah.
So this, well, and so speaking of functions, and again, now we're sort of fast forwarding now to the most recent stuff that that you've been working on, that we all know is this set.
Yep.
Which I just got a copy of for Christmas. I'm so excited. This is, well, I mean, as a builder, I am a huge fan of vignettes. Like that is my thing. Like little tiny models that have just like brimming with little details. And this is got it in spades. There's just so many great little things. And you have your function with a little drawer that pulls out, right? Like the Christmas Carol, that's actually a drawer that pulls out. I'm curious what
would I think?
Yeah, that's my question, Mel, because I've got this little snow globe here too that I believe is also one of yours that also has the little drawer that comes out. So what is it that you find the need to hide, that you have to integrate drawers and everything?
That took a turn.
I mean, I don't expect every child to have each one of these sets, but I always think it's fun if you have a hiding spot.
Yeah,
someone hide that hidden key, or you know, if you think about those little diaries that had like the little lock, and you know, no one can open it unless you've got that key. To me, this is kind of similar. I mean, like what I like about the one with the Christmas Carol is that unless you're building it, you won't know there's a drawer in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
If you want to hide something from your sibling or your parents or yourself or whoever, I don't know, or something, or some money in there or some jewelry, whatever it happens to be. I mean, I know it won't hold an awful lot, but I just thought it's better than having it just hollow. Because to me, it's like, you know, even though it's not super useful, it's kind of a bit boring if it was just hollow.
Yeah, for kids, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I think it's one of those things too. Like when you're a kid, you know, you have your room that mom comes in and cleans. You have your schoolwork that your teachers are checking, and your report card that you have to show home. So you, as a kid, you have very little like private stuff, right? Like there's not a lot that you get to keep to yourself. So I really appreciate that about this.
And you'd be amazed what my 9-year-old could fit in here. I could just imagine the stuff that I could find in here if this was in his room. I'd pull this out and like be like, we're just gonna put that back.
Well, and also like I've always been a fan of those, you know, like being somebody who's into like mystery and you know, spooky house movies and all that stuff. I always love like a rotating bookcase or the book that you open up that has the pages cut out of it, that has like the little thing in it. So I totally appreciate the inclusion of the little drawers. I think that's really, I think that's really fun.
We've even got a hidden door in our house, so yeah, it's right up our alley.
I mean, like for me, if there's, you know, if financially we can produce it and be able to do it, and there's room for it, I mean, why not? To me, it just adds a little bit extra value to it, and I find it a little bit fun, and I like the idea when people get surprised. They're like, I didn't even know it had a drawer. Like I only found out when I built it. Yeah. I think that's kind of a fun surprise.
Well, I think that's like surprise, I think is really important. And we kind of, I did a show where I was a guest along with Marcos Basis, who worked on a lot of the Harry Potter sets. And he worked on the Diagon Alley, which I'm putting together, and it had a little box. There's a little box in it that is a secret, and you don't know what it is. And he talked a little bit about that, like adding that little bit of difference, because we all know what it's like, right? Like you get the set, you open the bag, you put it together, like it's got a pretty, there's a pretty straight down the line schedule when you're putting together a Lego model, but to have that like extra bit of like secret, or like, oh, this has a drawer, I had no idea, how cool is that? Like what a cool little hidden thing. And I think that that is the stuff that keeps models interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I have another question for you in mind, but we need to take a pause just for a moment.
Oh yes, a pause. It is time for a pause. Everybody, we are, and Mel is going to get a trial by fire here. This is, it is time for our very special guest of the day. It is Logan Cookie time. Wow, he's tired. Oh, here he comes.
There we go. He was happy.
Oh, yay! It's Logan Cookie time and Skittles Cookie time.
My cookies are upstairs.
That's fine. Here, let's get little Logan gets his star turn.
Here, you get one more. Can you catch it? It's big.
Good boy. What a good boy, Logan.
Sweet.
What a good boy. And Skittles, of course, we have to have Skittles time, even though we all know that Skittles is a Muppet.
Oh, he's so cute.
You get a last one.
Oh, he's going to get one more. Wow.
There you go.
You can thank Mel for that extra.
She always knows. She always knows. She comes over here and just stares me down at 10:45.
That's right, everybody. And that was Logan Cookie. All right. Mel, don't ask me how that happened. It's a thing now. We did it one time early on the show, and people were so excited about it. It's now like a regular feature.
It sounds like my dogs every 5 minutes of the day, especially working from home. Can we have a treat? Can we have a treat? 5 minutes is past. Can we have another one?
So
I bet you spoil your animals.
Okay, so
Yeah.
here's something interesting. Now, you were saying, I believe I heard you kind of sneak in there that you're not a huge fan of brickheads. Is that what you were saying earlier? Or did I misinterpret it? Okay. Anyway, sorry, not to, but because I wanted to say, like, these are awesome. I'm gonna show. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm putting it up there. These are awesome. And we were fortunate enough to get a copy of this and the Donald Duck one as a gift from Lego for being on Lego Masters. So we have them ready to build. Now these are interesting sets because of course you're starting off from the base model is generally always the same, right? Like the inner cubes before you decorate the outside. So it's kind of almost like, I used to be a cake decorator. So it's almost like cake decorating, right? Like you're taking the base cake and then you're going to put a different, is it a birthday cake or a wedding cake or whatever? But how was it working with Disney? Because I know that they have especially when it comes to character art, we have a friend who does pop art for Disney, and they are very particular about the way that their characters can be interpreted. So, and seeing that this isn't a minifig, or this is a very different style, I'm just curious, did they have a lot to say about the process, or were you pretty much allowed to kind of do what you were going to do?
I don't know too much about from their part, but whenever we collaborated with them, there wasn't a lot of input. So that was pretty cool. I think also because, we worked together a little bit with Marcus Besser on these. So he was you could say, kind of the check-in person. So we already kind of had like an idea of how to create these characters anyway. And then, he'd already been dealing with Disney for so long. So I think he already knew a little bit about how they work and what's okay and what's not okay. So that was part of the input as well. But if you think of a brickhead and you come up with these characters, they're not that difficult in theory. I mean, Donald is fairly basic. I mean, like if you look at him, he's just got a different skin over him, you could say, compared to a regular brickhead. I mean, what makes him different is his beak, and then his feet, and then his hat, and maybe his, the top part of his eyes. But otherwise, he just looks like all the other brickheads in theory. It's Goofy, who is a little bit different, of course, because he has a very different build around, his muzzle and his hat and so on.
Pluto, of course, is very different.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I love the sideways built snout. Like, I just think that's such a great addition, because you don't see, or previously didn't see a lot of them that had like a lot of face protrusions. A lot of it was just like the plain face, and a lot of the character was in the hair or the outfit. And I think these really I don't know, they capture the characters perfectly. I think they're so well done. I really enjoy these. I'm looking forward to putting them together. I think they're designed really nicely.
I'm curious, you've worked on a lot of very small models and models that require a lot of abstraction, like your the Inside Tour micro builds. I'm a big fan of micro builds, and I know that you can abstract a car down to where it's barely recognizable as a car anymore, or an element, like how much of the landscaping do we include? Do you think in terms of abstraction with them, like what details can go away? And then do you feel like you have to check with other people? Like, do you know what this is still?
Yeah, but you said Inside Tour models. Which ones were you referring to?
I think they were. Let me see. I think I listed them. Well, I had the, maybe they weren't Inside Tour. I had Camarcan Factory, HMV Production, and then, well, the molding machines were less of a micro, or weren't so much micro, but those ones where you're showing factories and facilities.
Okay, so the factory sets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're not Inside Tour.
Oh, sorry there.
That's okay. That's where I got a little bit confused, because I was thinking, wait a minute, what? Yeah, the factory sets. I mean, like basically, it was actually interesting with some of them, because I was building those models as some of those factories were also being built at the same time, which is interesting, because sometimes, designs don't always go. Like when you're designing a building, sometimes things change in the design. So there's a couple of times I had to change certain things of some of the models because the actual building was changing. Like they would scrap an idea, or, oh, we're not going to do this entrance anymore, we're going to do this entrance, as an example. So a couple of little things that would kind of go back and forth. And then there was, I think it was the China one. I think my set came out before it was actually finished. So we had to work from a lot of blueprints and so on. But I mean, of course, these models needed to basically be built at a sort of similar type of style to some degree to the architecture sets. But at the same time, they need to go on someone's desk. Because that's basically the idea, was that you have a small model of the factory on your desk, and you can talk about that model to maybe whoever you're collaborating with. This is where you take the trucks and you sort of offload the goods into this bay here or whatever. And this is where you go into the entrance and so on. So it's kind of like a 3D map, you could almost say. But it's
they had practical functions as well as just looking cool.
What's that, sorry?
They said they had practical functions, like illustrative functions, in addition to just looking cool on your desk. Like it was a use. Well, here, like does bill into airport doesn't qualify, right, as part of that, but the style seems very similar to me.
Yeah, they wanted something to be in the same sort of line as the factories.
Now, this one was one that I know for like in our lug. And again, this was like early on when we were still early, like we were going to lug meetings. We hadn't really been to them before. And this ended up coming through as like a raffle prize. And people were like on the edge of their seat. Like they wanted this so badly. And it's a brilliant little micro build. Excuse me. But, this is definitely... I think that, people so often think about the big box models as being like, oh, the super desirable, Disney Castle or, Hogwarts Castle or Diagon Alley or whatever. And there is and this must be exciting, I would think, as a designer. I know if it was me, I would be excited, but there is, because of the sets that you design, because a lot of them are exclusives, and because a lot of them are gift with purchases where, you know, maybe you didn't have the, you know, $150 to spend on Lego that week to get the cool thing, so you missed out on it. And so I think in a lot of ways, a very large portion of your design sets are highly desirable.
Yeah, they're a little more exclusive, less mass-produced, more elusive.
And I mean, that just
limited time.
So thrilling as a designer to know that you know, the thing that you've designed is a hot commodity.
Yeah.
Like, that must be do you, I mean, and I'm also curious too, like
deep fans,
how
right?
much of that kind of stuff are you aware of? Like you know, you often hear like the like, it especially happens in Hollywood with actors who have been in movies that turn out to be like cult films later. Like they didn't, you know, like they were great when they came out, but years later, like everybody's still freaking out about them, and they catch up with the actor and they're like, so what do you think about everything surrounding so and so? They're like, what? People like this? I had no idea. How in touch with you with that kind of thing are you?
I mean, like, I'm an AFO as well, of course, so I know a lot of fans around the world. Also because I've been, you know, in touch with the AFO world for many, many years for different things, Brick Journal and so on. So I know a lot of the fans in various places, but when it comes to knowing how these sets are, it's usually either somebody knows of my brick set. Sorry, my eye is sore. Sorry. It's late here. It's getting a little bit late here. So yeah, so basically they know of that, and then they'll tell me, oh, I've got this set and that set and blah, blah, blah and whatnot, and I've just paid for this and I've just paid for that. Like the Berlin airport set, for example, some people were saying that it cost them like 200 something euro, and I'm thinking, you're coming from this country, you could have actually probably got a cheaper flight just to go to Berlin airport and pick up. You pay 200 something euro for it. That's mental.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so you hear these sort of stories, and it's just like, you guys are crazy, and then you hear it, yeah. But for the most part, it's usually like if I go to a fan event and then I'm part of like listening into the auctions, and then a lot of these sets will actually show up in the auctions, and then people are saying, you know, they'll pay this or that, and you're just like, okay, it's nice that you're offering a lot of money for the charity part, but of course they also want the set. So they're willing to pay ridiculous amounts of money for some of these sets. It's crazy. But, you know, some people out there also want to make sure that they have almost every single set in their collection, right? Or if they start with the factories, they start wanting all those sort of sets, or they're collecting all the architecture sets, and then they kind of consider these sets to be a little bit part of that, or very similar or close enough to being part of the architecture series. So they want all those sort of sets as part of it.
I wouldn't know anything about any of that.
Holly wouldn't know anything about that.
So I have the completionist bug. It's really bad. Do you have a hard time getting some of your own sets? Because I know some designers do.
I do. There's a couple that my friends have literally had to give me because I didn't get a copy myself.
Yeah, I know. I've had to acquire many a sets for designers that can't get their own sets, which I think is really sad.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, you know, it's interesting that because I think we all just assume like, oh, Lego designers have just houses made of Lego and they have everything they ever made, like all around, you know, people think of that, but
ask Justin how he feels about those San Diego Comic-Con exclusives that you can only get in the US.
Yeah, there you go. So we were talking earlier about the you know, like we were talking about exclusive stuff, and then we've talked about your collaborations with IKEA and Disney. Now this set, which I adore and I have a copy of, the Been There donut set. Donut that set.
That was a US exclusive. Go figure.
Yeah, I actually
went
and picked up some for friends in Europe and sent them out. But I'm curious now with something like this, how much did Target have to do with this, if anything? And same with the Toys R Us ones, where they just sort of like, okay, we need a little exclusive set, and you're like, okay, we're making this and here it is? or do they come to you and say, we want a set that is a coffee shop, and then they had something to say about it later?
You did, Justin. You did. I think I brought like a suitcase full of those over to Scarebook. Like half. One, Mel. You know who to get one from.
Yeah, I had to buy mine in the US actually, so I understand. But yeah, I mean, like it depends. Basically, in our brief is coming from different people, from our project managers and whatnot. So when we're given this brief, they've already had these discussions behind the scenes and so on. And so in this case, Target wanted something with a barista, I think it was, and they needed a dog. And, there's all these little things in there, that little elements that they wanted us to sort of work around. And then we end up coming up with this. I think I had several different sketch models, and then this is the one that they actually chose. But we didn't get an awful lot of time to work on this one, so.
Well, I find that really fascinating, I gotta say, because I'm sure that there are some places that you work with that are very hands-off. Like you said, Disney didn't really have a lot to say, which surprises me. But I mean, having worked for them, I'm really surprised.
Well, if they had something to say, I didn't necessarily hear about it. So it's just more of my line of communication with them wasn't an awful lot.
That's what supervisors are for.
But I find that interesting that Target would come and say, okay, we want something with a barista, and it also has to have a dog. Like, I'm just curious, what the meeting was like, where they were like, okay, we're going to have Lego Bill set. What does it need to be? And somebody's like, we really have to have a barista. It's really important.
It was some years ago that those sets were created, so I can't remember the actual background story to some of that. To me, I'm just like, yeah, give me the brief, and I just want to work on it, right, and create the concept models and all that sort of stuff, and just take it from there. All the other blah, blah, blah stuff is something between my marketing manager and whatnot and whoever we're dealing with. So for me, I just want to get in and start creating and designing the sets. So it's like, okay, if there needs to be a dog in there, let's put a dog in there. If it needs to be a barista in there, we put a barista in there, and off we go.
Well, can you expand on that a little bit, in that you've got the brief and you've had the discussions, and maybe the limitations, like whether there's going to be a part limitation to fit in the packaging. Well, what do you do then? Do you grab some bricks and start putting them together, or a pencil or a computer? Where do you go once you have all of that data?
I mean, like I mentioned earlier, we didn't have an awful lot of time for this one. Sometimes when you're working with partners like this, a lot of it's ad hoc. So it's not like, in 2 years' time, we want you to create a such and such a set for a campaign. It's not usually like that. It's usually kind of like, these guys don't think very far ahead. So some of it is like, oh, we have this brief coming in, and by the way, it's from such and such, and we have this amount of time to produce it. And then, it needs to fit into the time slot of everything else that we do, and so on. Yeah. So stuff like this is very like boom, boom, boom. You create something, it goes back and forth. There's a lot of looping, blah, 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 until we get to where everyone's happy with it, and boom, out it goes. So this one didn't have a lot of time to work on it. But basically, I didn't get to sketch or anything like that with pens and pencils and all that sort of stuff. It was literally just start putting stuff together. I mean, when you've been there for so many years, you kind of have an idea of where to start from. It's like, if you're a new fan of Lego, you're kind of like scratching your head going, how am I going to get around this? But, after a while, it's kind of like, okay, so they need this and they need that. And you start building whatever it happens to be that you've been asked of. So in this case, if it's a barista, it's like, okay, well, what type of barista, how is this meant to be, and maybe we'll do a little bit debriefing as well. So it's a little bit easier to start creating and building whatever it is that has been asked of. And that helps as well. So getting as much information as possible makes it a lot easier to move forward.
Especially on a tight schedule.
Exactly. Yes. The more information, the better. So.
All right, Mel, I have a hindsight question.
Yes.
How long ago was it that you designed the skating rink?
Oh, sometime last year.
Sometime last year. Can you think of any parts that have come out since then that would allow you to get the ice skate to clip into the base?
Oh my gosh.
Because that's the only thing that's driving me bananas right now. As I'm trying to
Holly's not particular in any way, by the way. She is in no way particular about anything.
I wonder. I actually wonder that as a general question, because you know how I have like the whole Winter Village and all the extras, right? And that is one thing I've actually struggled with, is with those darn ice skates, how to get those to click to the base plates. So I'm wondering, like, if one of the antenna pieces or something, like if you took the part that go, you know what I'm talking about, right? The little, I don't know what you call them. They're antennas. If you take the little piece out.
Not allowed to do that. So there's a lot of things you guys can do as fans, and that's fantastic.
Right.
You know, you don't have these restrictions. But when you start producing models, there are a lot of elements that need to stay together, and that's one of them.
See, that would be my part request. Like, as a designer, I'd be like, this part needs to exist.
Yeah, I mean, like, you guys are pulling hands off minifigures. We can't do that.
No, I don't.
We can't do that. We can't decapitate minifigures.
Octopus eyes. What are you talking about?
We use the heads too.
What does Creator mean by octopus eyes?
Yeah, that's what I use those for octopus eyes too, actually.
Oh, the antenna piece, the antenna base pieces. Got it.
Yes.
Is that what we call them? Octopus eyes?
Yeah, squid eyes.
Squid eyes. Sure. All right. Well, there needs to be a part that exists. I don't even know what to do. That's gonna bug me all day. I'm gonna have to find something that works.
That's great. Then you have a challenge. I'm happy for you, Holly.
Yeah.
Thanks. You're welcome. I mean, like, when we're producing some stuff, in my department, we don't actually get, because this is a gift with purchase, right? We don't get to produce new elements specifically for something like this.
But you get to put a request in though, right? Don't you? Like,
we can do a color change on some stuff, but it depends.
I thought you could actually put in, like, if you had an idea for a part that doesn't exist. So how does how do new parts come into existence? Where does that originate?
That's a core thing. I'm not part of core.
Oh, okay. Because I would think that new parts would come about because designers need them.
Yeah. Okay. That's a very different department type thing. So that's not in my department at all.
So not any designer gets to, only certain designers get to request new parts?
I mean, like, there's only several of us in my department. So we're creating a lot of the, you know, the merchandise stuff or the gift with purchase, or, you know, we have a few.
So that stuff that stuff doesn't get new parts. Got it. Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
Kind of like Lego Ideas, like up until recently, just wasn't allowed to have new parts. Yeah.
No, well, speaking of Lego Ideas, you worked on one of the early Kuso pieces, it looks like here, according to your catalog. So can you talk a little bit about that? I'll bring a picture of it up real quick.
The Hayabusa. That was the second one in the series.
Here it is. Sorry, this is still a little new to me. There we go.
Yes.
So this is interesting. Now, was this? I mean, because we've talked to a couple of other designers about this. Is like, what is it like taking something that somebody else has already built and kind of reworking it into something that is to the Lego standard? Did you find it difficult or easy?
No, I mean, it depends. I mean, like, you know, you also want to be able to, when you're creating these sort of products, you want to be able to pay as much homage to the original designer as much as possible. But of course, you need to also be able to make sure that it's buildable for whoever is going to be, you know, using the building instructions and so on. So in this case, you know, it was a very nice model that the fan had built. But of course, you know, we also had in the briefing, you know, we would like this change or that change, or, you know, can you incorporate this or that, or whatever it happens to be. And in this one, actually, I thought it could be nice if it was on, like, the stand that it's on, it's in the shape of the asteroid. That's something that I decided to propose because I thought that could actually tell a little bit more of the story.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the minifigure of the, I can't remember his name, but then, yeah, the minifigure.
The minifigure.
Yeah, it's a million years ago that we created the set, so forgive me.
Yeah, no, it's okay. We were talking about ideas, so I thought we would talk about that for a second. So as a sort of a non-Lego question, since we're sort of pulling in towards the end here in a few minutes, I'm curious, and we got a question, and I know because you and I talked a little bit about it over email, but outside of, well, first of all, do you build Lego outside of work? Like, do you still find it a fun hobby, or is it like that is work and then I would rather do other things when I'm not at work?
Well, right now I live in a very small house and we're renovating, so all the Lego is packed away.
Oh no.
Here we go. Sorry?
You dropped out.
You just dropped out for a second.
I have a lot of Lego, and we're renovating at the moment. We live in a very small house, so there is no Lego room right now. So the only Lego that I've been building lately is basically at home, away from work time, is maybe some of the sets that I've been buying from the store.
Got it.
But actual project, my own projects, unfortunately not, no.
So now if you could pick any line, past or present, to work on or to have worked on, was there a line that you just like love and would love to be able to work on?
Ooh, I'm not sure actually. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Okay.
Are there any projects in particular that you've ever been dying for? Like, like something maybe that you have designed already that was something you really wanted to work on, or do they just assign everything to you because that's what your department does? And
yeah,
it's the hype.
Of course, our department, like I said, is very different. But then I would have to move to a different department in order to do that.
Right, of course.
Like doing some modulars or some rather large set like that would be quite fun, I think.
Very fun.
I am curious. You've talked about the limitations of the sets, time limitations, parts limitations. Is there one project you've worked on where you just felt like it was open sky? Just you had plenty of time and plenty of everything. Just stretch your wings. Is there one, or maybe those the experiences with limitations are where you want to be as a designer? Like, what was this was such a fun design process?
I was going to say, to begin with, what planet are you living on?
Yeah, well,
there's never enough time and resources.
I'm always as a lighting designer, I'm always fulfilling or expressing other people's ideas, so I always have limitations. It's showing what someone else is doing. But I appreciate when I have freedom, like with dance, to just make it whatever color I want, and it doesn't have to be real. Is there something like that for you?
I mean, like in general, if we get a brief and we're a little bit like, whatever it is that we've been asked of from higher above, if it's a little bit like, why on earth are we, maybe we'll second question some of the stuff that's been asked of us because it doesn't make sense, or it's irrelevant, or, or we can think of something better. So sometimes we might actually have a brainstorm and come up with some other ideas. So for example, many, many years ago, back when I was in Creator, there was a little gingerbread house and the little train set. And I can't remember exactly what was briefed to us, but it was something very, very, yeah, exactly.
Oh, we had it.
It was something very, very different. And it was just, I can't remember what it was, but it was just like, why would you ask for this? Had a discussion that it was like, this isn't that exciting. And like, anyway, so what we decided to do was come up with a couple of different ideas and then propose it to them and say, we thought about your idea and we thought about, whatever, here's a few arguments as to why we don't think it's maybe a good idea or something that, maybe we should try something else. And here's what we propose. And then we just decided to propose the little train and the gingerbread house. So, I mean, usually it's a little bit more, we get a brief. And for the most part, we usually work on the brief, but sometimes we like to challenge a little bit back. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So it depends.
Yeah, this was a very highly sought after model. That's why I pulled this one from my Winter Village, because I remember this one being pretty special and kind of hard to get. And I remember, like, this is one of the few sets I actually sold an extra of because people wanted it so bad.
That's a great one. It's a really good set. So, So I'm curious. I know, like I said, we talked a little bit about this over email, but you clearly have a life outside of Lego. So what are some of the, if you want to discuss them, what are some of the other sort of like hobbies or things that you enjoy? I know you said you're really into a lot of sort of very cute kawaii sort of things, which I know a lot of us here are fans of. But do you have other, what are your other sort of like things that you like to do outside of Lego stuff?
Yeah, I love my animals. We have 3 dogs and 1 kitty cat who is pestering me right now to come in.
The paw under the door.
Can I just grab her? Sorry.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
please. We're fans of animals.
Yeah, unfortunately, the grill does not allow the skate to stay up. It still like wobbles, so it doesn't like fit in there tight.
Oh, Holly, I know that piece you were talking about is the one with the moving handle, right? Like you called it. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yay!
Hi, kitty.
She's like, nah.
She's like, okay, I'm done.
She doesn't want a cookie. Anyway, you can see the tail. Yeah, I love to travel. I like traveling all different parts of the world, especially parts of Asia and so on. Sunny places, places that actually have sun.
Yes.
Even though you actually went further north recently.
Yeah. Well, that's also because we didn't have many other choices to go.
True.
So, you take where you can go, right? So yeah, this year we went to Norway and we went to Sweden, but Corona times and so on, so it's a little bit difficult to travel. Otherwise, if I had it my way, we probably would have gone to somewhere tropical. Especially right now. I mean, this time last year we were in Sri Lanka traveling around, and that was amazing.
Wow,
that sounds cool.
Wow.
And it's also really nice to be able to see all those different cultural things. And I think that's also really fun when you're a designer as well. You get some of the inspiration and just seeing something a little bit different out there and learning different people's cultures. And, there's a lot of things in life that we take for granted ourselves about, we think all these kids have this and that. And it's like, no, a lot of kids out there actually live in poverty, right? I mean, when you look at the big side, outside the big world, there's not so many kids who have the luxury of being able to go out there and buy Lego and products like that and lots of fun. So it's actually quite interesting just to see, how other kids around the world and how other people around the world live. So I find that quite interesting and fascinating. But I also think it helps to broaden your own mind and whatnot. But I also, like I said, like to be inspired a little bit by, some of the cultural things, like some of the buildings and the architecture and infrastructure and whatnot. I mean, like there's so many different types of vehicles around the world. We always think a car looks like this, or an ambulance looks like that, or a fire truck looks like, what we're typically seeing every day. But little do we realize sometimes that they look very, very different around the world, many very different types of vehicles and so on.
Well, I believe
there's a question in the chat there. Joel Marbella asks if you have an inspiration board from travel that finds its way into your Lego designs, which I imagine, at least subconsciously, it must.
Yeah, maybe. I have to think about that one, actually. I mean, like usually when I'm designing something, I try to think a little bit more global as much as possible. I mean, because, it's very easy to make things look very American or very Western or very whatever, right? And then, it's like just because it is a vehicle, maybe this color or that color or whatever happens to be in certain parts of the world, doesn't mean it's like that in every part of the world. So it's a little difficult at the same time because, I mean, like thankfully a dog, for example, I mean, there's many different breeds around the world that, like you go to Japan, for example, they've got like the Akita and they've got the Shiba Inus and so on, and they're quite different looking from other parts of the world, right? And so on. So there's a lot of localized sort of dogs and cats and bits and pieces and whatnot. So it's a little difficult to think and build. Yeah. But, there's also a lot of similarities and yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's difficult, I think. The beauty about the world is that there are so many different things out there and so many different things. Sorry, my cat is like killing me.
And anyway, I think we all know inspiration comes from everywhere, right? So,
my cat. Sorry. She wants to knead the dough on me.
So well, so you were saying about the cars, like not everybody has like for example, the tuk tuk that's coming out. That's a great example of exactly what you were just talking about, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like vehicles around the world look very different everywhere, right? I mean, like, and it's like the London bus, for example. I mean, like that works because if you look around the world, there's a lot of tour buses, the double-decker tour buses, like, you know, hop on, hop off type buses and so on. Otherwise, you know, if no one had seen those sort of buses on the movies or anything like that, they probably wouldn't recognize what that bus is. I mean, when I went to China many years ago, like, you know, even things like Valentine's and stuff, some of the people there who are like fans of Lego and stuff are like, what is this love thing? They have like, I think it's called White Day or something like that. But to a lot of them, it's like, what is Thanksgiving? What is Halloween? What is Valentine's?
Right.
You know,
I think we've had some discussion because we have a pretty international audience here on TrickyBricks. And I think sometimes we get caught up in those discussions of the different holidays that we celebrate and the different ways that we celebrate. I can't remember what, there was one recently where somebody.
Halloween.
Was it Halloween?
Yeah.
I thought there was another one that was like, what even is that?
A lot of discussion about Halloween, and you know, so I'm curious too now, but you know, to sort of like end on some other things that you're into. So you said you're into crafting and making stuff.
Yes.
And I don't know if you heard me earlier, but I'm anxiously awaiting the delivery of a 3D printer. This was my Christmas present, so I'm super excited about that. But so I'm interested in what your other sort of creator maker things are that you're interested in doing. Like I know Holly knits, I like to knit. Richard does linoleum block cuttings and things like that. So what are your sort of more craftier interests?
Right now I'm doing a bunch of felting. I'm trying out a lot of different techniques with that and so on, a lot of felt things in general. I mean, I have a big, huge unit that I've just put together this year, and it's got all my crafting stuff. I think it's called Create Room now. So, you know, it's like a big wardrobe and, sorry, lots of cat fur everywhere. It's a big wardrobe and it opens up and it's amazing. You put like all your arts and craft in there. It's absolutely.
Is it that one that like opens up like a big refrigerator and then it has a second set of doors? Ah!
Yeah, I wanted one for years, but the problem is we're renovating at the moment. Everything's kind of like boxed up. So in order to access it, I need to like move all the boxes everywhere. But otherwise, it's an amazing piece of furniture. And in there, I've got like felting and materials and stuff like that. So once we've finished renovating, I'm going to be getting my hands stuck in there. But a lot of felting things, little characters, little kawaii things, and all sorts of stuff.
Now, our summer project is going to be emptying our garage because we recently moved. So all of our like boxes and stuff that are still packed or just all got shoved out into the garage. So now that's just full of boxes. But our summer project, when it's actually like sunny and dry, we're going to empty the garage and make that into our maker space. So we're going to have our sewing machines and crafting and printing and all that stuff out there. You'll never see me again, guys.
So I'm interested if you're doing felting, does that mean you're also either crocheting or knitting?
No.
Oh, okay. Because the felting I know is
like when we go
with needles.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And try not to get yourself, right?
But are you sewing the pieces together and then felting them?
You have like the little needles, and then you have like the wool, the felting wool.
What are you doing? What are you making with it? What are you making with the felted wool?
At the moment, I'm as you probably know, I'm Australian, and just recently, as you probably also know, we've had a lot of animals that have passed away and whatnot, being killed in the bushfires at the beginning and last year as well. So what I also realize is, you know, now that a lot of people understand what some of these animals are, they don't realize all the animals that we actually have in Australia. I don't even think a lot of Australians even know all the animals that have in Australia. So at the moment, I'm doing a lot of characters and animals. And then I want to basically just be able to show them to people to say, you know, this is what a bandicoot is. Some people haven't even heard what a bandicoot is.
I only know the video game one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Correct.
But, you know, there's so many different types of animals. People don't know what a quoll is or a quokka. You know, so it's just being able to like, I want to create these little animals and then, just be able to say, this is what
Well,
this
that
is.
sounds so fun. I mean, it's because I didn't know, I wasn't familiar with that kind of felting. Like what I've known of felting is like you crochet or knit something, and then you use the needles to
And
then
you felt
felt
it.
the fabric once it's already made into something.
Right.
But this is I didn't realize you could do that the other way. That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, so you can use, like, you're basically just sort of compressing it, and then you're using the needles to compress it and form it into shapes. But sometimes, depending what the animal is or whatnot, I'll use a bit of wiring as well so that you can have the legs and the head and pose it and all that sort of stuff.
Wow, I had no idea. That's crazy because I wanted to do like a little bit of felting. Like I started because I crochet and knit. And I started looking at some of the crochet kawaii little figures and stuff that people made, and I downloaded some things. I was like, oh, I'm going to make these. And after about 20 minutes of crocheting with a needle that is literally the size of a needle, my hands were like claws. And I was like, I don't know that I can, I don't know if I can finish this off. But wow, like that seems a little bit easier on the hands.
Yes and no, because you're constantly doing this. It takes an awful lot of repetition in order to be able to get the because you're like literally every little piece of thread or whatnot of the actual wool, you're sort of trying to push in and compress it, so it becomes sort of, instead of being fluffy, it shrinks, it compresses, and then it starts forming a shape, and you're constantly doing this.
Wow.
I'm trying to use like a bigger, you can get like a I think it holds about 6 of these little needles, and then of course you can do it even further.
Wow, I had no idea.
And then you have to use something on your finger because you don't want the needles to go through, because that hurts.
Yeah, imagine so.
Yeah.
It's kind of like my cat clawing me. It's like,
Well, that's awesome.
I've got to send a link to something really cool to you, Mel. I have to find it though, so I'll send it to you later. It's I think you'll like it. It's pretty.
Well, I always like to hear like artists who are known for a particular medium, like what other things they like to create as well, because it's just I find that it interesting to see how those things link together. So you like making little small animals, and you've also designed a lot of like small animal Lego sets, so there's a little bit of like crossover between of your interests and stuff. And I love seeing how the interests of the artist gets infused into the different mediums that they use. So I think that's really, I always enjoy hearing that. It's always something I like to talk to our guests about. But well, it looks like we are at time. So I wanted to say thank you so much, Mel, for coming on, talking with us today.
Maybe staying up late, right?
And staying up to.
it's only 30.
Okay.
It's so dark here that I'm so tired. I just want to hibernate.
Yeah.
Yeah. If
I understand.
I'm a bit sleepy, you know why? Because it's just like.
I know. I just commented to my daughter yesterday. It was like 9:30, almost 10 o'clock, and I looked out and I was like, you know what's crazy is if it were summertime, it still wouldn't be dark. Whereas right now it feels like it's dark all day.
Yeah.
Because it gets dark by like 4 o'clock.
I mean, I just want to crawl under the table and sleep.
Well, I'm sure your cat likes that idea.
Yeah,
she does.
Yeah, thanks for hanging with us. I know. The winter time is rough, but I wanted to get you on because you've done so many of the seasonal things, and I'm sure lots of people are building your models right now. And so, thanks for chatting with us.
Yeah, well, I also think it's important because I know, like, just being newer to the hobby, because only 4 or 5 years. When we first got on Lego Masters, everybody was like, "Oh my God, Jamie Berard! Oh my God, you're gonna meet Jamie!" I'm like, who? What? No offense, Brickmaster Jamie, but we just didn't know. We just didn't know. Like, to us, to that point, Lego was an art supply. Like, we weren't buying sets; we were buying pieces,
bricks,
and bricks. And so it's only been in the past, like, since we've been on Lego Masters, that we really started to like know and understand the work that goes on behind this. Like, who are the people behind the sets? And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't consider. But I think recently a lot more people have been excited to know about like who is actually behind this, and I feel like often they focus on the larger boxed sets and not so much on the more, even though they're the more desirable sets, like the things that everybody wants, like I gotta get my hands on. You don't think about the faces and the brains behind all that stuff. So I'm just so thrilled that you were able to come on and talk to us and put a face to, gosh, like so many sets that we've have around the house and have had. I'm still looking at this list going, wait, that one too? Like,
and Mel's another one of those people. I think I probably met you like 3 times before I realized you were a designer.
That's okay.
Yeah, I don't know who any. The funny thing is I never know who anybody is unless I just happen to meet them and talk to them, and then it's like something I find out later that like who they are.
Finding a set and then finding out who designed it is kind of like buying a painting that didn't have a signature.
Yeah,
and it's like this thing that you really love, and you're like, oh wait, that's yours. Like I can't believe that. That's so amazing. So I'm glad now that we and everybody out, in Tricky Lug and in our audience now has a face to put to all of those great sets that they are going to fly to another country to purchase because they can't get them here.
Yeah, is it weird? Another question in the chat: is it weird when AFOLs gush at you, Mel?
Yeah.
For anybody?
Yes, it's strange. It's like, okay, well, I'm just like you. I'm a fan.
Well, you've brought a lot of joy through these sets.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I understand to a degree how you feel, because we get a lot of people who are like, oh my God, Lego Masters, oh my God, you were on Lego Masters, and I'm just like, we're just guys,
we're fans
who happen to get picked. Like, we're not, there's and like you, and I think like many artists, we're very a little harsher about our own work than we would be about somebody else's work. So I understand that feeling, definitely. But and I hope we are actually going to be showing at the Masterpiece Gallery at the Lego House this year. So hopefully, if everything is
crossed for Scareback.
Yeah, we will be there and at Scareback, and hopefully we will get to meet you in person, which would be.
And I think we'll be cabin mates, so
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, we're gonna. My fantasy is that I'm gonna have like this. I'm gonna like preside over a massive lunch with like you and Justin and Marcos and Wes, and that we're like all gonna get to like hang out and take a picture like the Last Supper. Like all.
I bet we can make that happen. If we can make Scareback happen, if we can get to Scareback, we'll make that happen.
If you
another taco party.
Yeah. But I just saw in the chat earlier, someone asked if I like Vegemite, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
What, because I'm Australian? Of course I love Vegemite. It's yummy.
What kind of question is that?
Well, thank you again, Mel, for coming on and being with us today. Thanks, Holly, for setting this up and coming on and being with us. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Mel, for all of your wonderfully inspirational models and just the, like you were saying earlier, the joy that you bring. I hope that I know it's like uncomfortable when people gush and all that sort of thing, but I really do hope that you understand how much joy that your work brings to the life of not only so many kids, but also so many adults, because I think that's people putting joy out into the world is often in short supply. And I just, I hope that you understand how much your work means to so many people. So thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, we will be back on Wednesday at 10 a.m. with our 2020 retrospective wrap up, whatever that is going to turn out to be.
Super real.
Moto and Holly will hopefully be here, and hopefully also Kara as well. I'm not sure, but we will be hopefully having a couple of other people on. Again, we're about to celebrate our 200th episode in about a month. So considering we've only been on under a year, a 2020 retrospective is going to be kind of like a retrospective of our whole show. So we're going to try to like balance that out and have things for both of those. But oh, good. Minifig Chick says yes, she will be there. Very good.
I might be there, part of it.
But we're gonna head out. Thanks everybody for coming today, and until Wednesday at 10 a.m. Don't forget to please stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, wear your mask, get that flu shot, and we will see you Wednesday at 10 a.m. Bye, everyone.
Happy building.
Happy building. Thank you.
Bye.
And